job to set the table, so to speak, for the housing to be constructed through our general plan and our zoning updates, and to make sure that there's room for that amount of housing. We've done that. In 2019, our downtown code was revamped in part to facilitate housing development. So we're about 20% there. At the same pace, I think we should, unless the pace picks up, we won't make it to the 100% at the current pace. However, there's a lot of things in the process right now that aren't shown on this report. I think some of the general plan updates that are pending alluded to that, the Mulhart Styles, the Teal Club development, and there's a lot of entitled or close to being entitled multifamily projects that are in the pipeline. This report shows what's been entitled, what permits have been issued, and what's been finished. So I think I'm trying to find the number. It's something like 2,500 units in the pipeline right now. Forgive me if I'm misquoting that. I'm trying to find that number, which is not insignificant. And there is a lot. We expect there to be an uptick. So I don't think we're going to finish by, I don't think it's accurate right now to just straight line where we're at and project that out to the end of the RHNA cycle. It feels like there's a lot more of that potential, especially towards the end of that cycle when Teal Club and North Shore and some other things kick off.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Mayor, if I can add a couple of comments, because I want us to try to resist having this discussion in our own vacuum and bubble. So the whole RHNA issue is just a standard state process, and every community has to go through this. There is a housing crisis in California. There's no question about that. It's simple math. 39 million people and only 14.6 million housing dwellings. It's just numbers. Every community has its unique ability to either absorb the housing demands, like Oxnard's done a very good job over the years, and there are other communities that actively fight it. Yeah. So we're not in a bubble here. It's unfortunately fluid across the state, and we happen to be, as a city, one of the better providers of housing construction opportunities, much better than many other communities. And we just had this very insular discussion about ADU permit turnaround time, neglecting the fact that that's actually terrible state policy, a one-size-fits-all policy that is actually not good public policy. And we're sitting here debating the turnaround time for those permits. There's a broader context here to keep in mind. Overall, we're doing well. Again, relative to the needs across the state, it's unfortunate of the one-size-fits-all legislation out of Sacramento in recent years due to the fact that there is a housing crisis across the entire state. So we don't get rewarded for the progress. We get punished along with all the other communities that for decades now, it really just comes down to NIMBYism. So now we're dealing with that. And there's some of that here. And wait till these other large projects come before you. You're going to get a taste of some of that here too. But it's a broader context. So I just want to make sure we're not having this discussion in a bubble here. There's much more at play here that is imposed upon us. So these are not all our independent free will choices.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, for those comments. Councilmember Perlo, go ahead.
If one of the planning staff here that's been here, say, 10, 15 years, can you share with the new council members, how did we get such large RHNA numbers years ago and deals were cut with cities? How did we get there? And we are not able to apparently shed those things. We got to deal with it. Because I think it's a good lesson for us all to understand.
Hopefully you can hear me from here if that's okay. Yeah.
Right.
Mayor and council members, that's a great question. I also, before I answer that, I wanted to mention that a few things to piggyback on the city manager's comments. One is that number that we were allocated is a goal. It's not an absolute mandate. It's a goal. And having seen housing production in other communities, not typical that cities meet that precise goal. So that's an important point. And I do want to point out that we're doing a phenomenal job in the low-income category with meeting 61% of our target. That's very impressive. And with economics, as you've been hearing from the Housing Division, it's extremely hard to make the very low-income number. The second point I wanted to make is that we don't look at the numbers in a vacuum. It's also how the city's doing in implementing the housing element programs. We are a very good actor with HCD. We are one of the prized cities because we do a good job of meeting our programs. So they do look at how we're doing in meeting the numbers, and then also compliance with programs to advance housing in all aspects of housing, not just construction, but programs to advance safe housing, welfare, a whole gamut of it. To the question regarding how RENA was established, that was a process. Every 8 years, we have a new housing cycle. The number of units to be constructed throughout the entire United States is established. So think of it as an umbrella. At the very top of the umbrella, a certain number of housing units is allocated to the entire United States. From that process, then those numbers are allocated to states. And that's based upon a variety of factors. And in the 8-year cycle, in the different 8-year cycles, we're currently in the sixth cycle, the methodology changes from year to year. This past 8-year cycle, the 6th cycle, we had a seat at the table to help negotiate what that methodology would be. That methodology took into consideration the 5th cycle and lack of production of housing in California, and it added on the units going forward for the next 8 years. So what happened was we were making up for what wasn't done in California, and that was, and I can only speak to the SCAG region, which is our region, and that's comprised of about 196 cities. And you can bet that we were all at the table having that discussion and being involved in that methodology. So that was how the number for the SCAG region was so large. And then it's allocated by county, and again, under a methodology. Does that answer your question?
No, it does not. When the Jones Ranch was pitched, there was agreements made with other cities to take the RENA numbers. Can you please explain that?
I can't speak, Councilmember Perella, to the Jones situation. I will say that there were no in this sixth cycle, there was no horse trading for units.
Okay, recently, in the past there was. I remember sitting on this council when I first got here. Carmen Ramirez giving a big lecture about how come we got these huge numbers, and the other cities that gave the number, basically dumped the numbers on us. I think those might have been her words. We were saddled with these large numbers, and we're not able to shed them.
That's not a methodology as part of the 6th cycle, and I believe that would not be what we would be going forward. That's not
Going forward, I don't think we would ever do that again, but at the time, I believe that's what did. I'll stand to be corrected if somebody can find, or I will dig it up. My fellow councilmen, I'll dig it up.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Pearl. But, yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Starr.
I guess I have really a more basic question. Yeah, it seems like we live under a paradigm where we think that an affordable house has to be a new house. And I know that for many people in their lives, as their incomes get, improve, as their wealth improves, that typically someone starts in a starter house and they wind up in a bigger house down the road, and most people move within like 5 miles of where they live. And it just seems to me that when we build a new house that people really want, and somebody in the community moves into that new house, well, the house that that person moved from becomes available, and it's typically a less expensive house. I don't know if there's any way that our legal eagles here can figure out a way to take advantage of that in a way where we say, hey, if somebody in the community upgrades to a better house, then that frees up this unit for purposes of meeting our, our numbers that we need to meet. I don't know if there's any way to do something like that, but I think it, it is the reality. The reality is that housing units do become available, older houses become available when people move into newer houses.
But that would still require for another unit to be added.
Absolutely, but the advantage would be that you've got many developers who, they're looking at how does this pencil out? Sometimes they have to create so many low-income housing units that it just doesn't pencil out for them and it's just not attractive. If they were actually able to build the houses that they thought would sell, and in many cases they tend to be higher income, then it will free up housing for lower income people when those people in those houses move it into these better houses. Not everybody starts off in Victoria Estates.
Well, but I think you're making two assumptions.
Yeah.
One is that builders might build houses that won't sell. I've never met a builder that would do that.
I'm sorry,
No, the first one is you're saying the builders would build something that they thought would sell. That's all they do. I don't know any builders who build houses that don't sell. But also the assumption that our families would be able to make the jump into this new property. And that's not the case here. That's part of the problem. So it's still, in the big picture, it's still a numbers game just with regard to the number of dwellings, units, or just think about it as bedrooms.
but there
We
may
just
be-
don't have enough bedrooms for the number of human beings.
I agree.
Right.
And there may be a way where we encourage a developer to help buy up an old house in order to get somebody into the new house. And that may be a way to free up a lower income house at that point. So, because right now, sometimes we have them just give money in lieu. Sometimes we make them, build a certain number of units that are quote unquote affordable, which seems to go up higher and higher each year. This just may be another approach. I don't know if it has legs.
But you're suggesting encourage developers to purchase existing housing stock?
If that gets that person into the new house, that may be an approach. It has to be something that's economically reasonable, but it might help some people if this was a benefit that we could give to people who live locally, and maybe you can't do that. But if you can, this may be a way to get people into a better house for cheaper and free up the old house that's existing that for people that are just starting off their families or starting off their lives in a house. But this may not even be a legal approach. I'm
Mayor
just simply-
and council members, I want to mention that there are programs in the housing element. So it's not just a new construction and that is the allocation with a certain percentage. There are programs in the housing element that talk about renovation and household assistance programs. So we do have a very robust variety of programs that address some of what you're talking about. And
Is that for rentals only, or is that just also for purchases of homes?
that's a rental assistance program.
Okay, but I'm thinking about people that purchase homes, though. That's the angle I'm coming from. I haven't heard anybody do something like this before, maybe because it just violates the law and we can't do it.
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with the law. I think it's just the private market. When you're talking about companies buying up property, that's gentrification. That's
Yeah.
what that is.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it beats the,
Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Thank you. I feel like we're getting a little bit into a philosophical discussion here, but I'll just say that when it comes to new construction, and again, this is just me speaking as an individual, I believe that the income eligible individuals should have as much access to new construction as anybody. If they qualify for assistance programs to help them get into their first home, and it's a new construction home that has some level of inclusionary set aside for those income eligible individuals or families, that's the purpose of having that. I don't think that new construction or the nice new developments should only be accessible to those who can afford to be there. Everybody has to start somewhere. And I note that I don't know everybody's situation here. I can speak for myself as a renter that I've been saving for a long time. And it's always this moving goalpost that is moving faster and faster as time goes on, regardless of my ability, my upward mobility as a professional or my income. And that's fine. I'm happy where I'm at, and hopefully that's somewhere where I'll go. And I believe, Councilmember, you joined me in being a renter as well. And that's that's just where I am as an individual, but, I look at it as, when we have all these developments and having our housing numbers and all that, to me, the priority, individually for me, just philosophically, is our residents who live here who, are, hoping to either be homeowners or at least just get stable roofs over their heads. And, if we have programming and we have, ability to support them in that, they're just as deserving of that as anybody who has the job or the income that gives them the ability to access that easily. So anyways, that's just my take on this. I appreciate all the conversation on it, but I'll just turn it back over to the mayor.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this item?
Mayor, we do not have any public speakers in person or virtually. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's no further comment, this is a receive and file item with, doesn't require a vote. So we can just move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pengilly.
Thank you for the presentation.
The next item on the agenda is item L3 from the City Attorney's Office. The subject is ordinance amending the city's purchasing system, City Code Chapter 4. We approximate about 10 minutes for this item. The recommendation is that the City Council approve the first reading by title only and waive further reading of the proposed ordinance titled, "An Ordinance of the City of Oxnard, California repealing and replacing Chapter 4, Articles 1 through, 8? 6 of the Oxnard City Code for purchasing, contracting, and public projects." The Finance and Governments Committee approved this 3-0 on February 25, 2025. And Stephen Fisher is the contact. Do any council members have any questions of staff on this item after viewing the presentation? No? Yes, yes, sir, Councilmember Pearl.
L, just to appease me, can you play devil's advocate and say why I should not support this?
No, I can't.
Thank you. Thank you.
Says the author of the proposal.
I would like to share just some feedback because I was in the Governance and Finance Committee, and something that really attracted me to support this effort is that it could change some of our bidding and purchasing processes from months to like 6 to 8 weeks. And I just think that this is us trying to clean up some of the things that, in terms of policies and procedures, that we should all be on the same page. So in the Governance and Finance Committee, I did ask a few questions, but I'm in support of it right now.
Yeah, thank you. Councilwoman Rodriguez. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. McCarron, for the comprehensive presentation. When the agenda is released, I take a look at it, and then I look at the videos. I say, oh, I should probably watch this one now. So I appreciate the comprehensive look at all of this. And I'm just going to ask real quickly, as I have, just so the public has it, can you just give a summary of what we have here regarding the repealing of this for our procurement process and what this means?
So what the intent was here is and I have the purchasing agent, Jennifer Yates, here to assist. So if I say something and need further clarification, she can definitely jump in. The intent of amending the ordinance and replacing it in its entirety is we should really be taking a look at this stuff about every 5 years. And we have seen what the city's contracting needs have been over the last 5 years and how the current ordinance really slows it down, how it's very confusing for staff in terms of what is required for formal solicitations for goods and professional services and trade services and general services versus what's required for public projects. We've also simplified the contracting authority, so you don't have to do these mental gymnastics that staff has to do in determining the annual value, the annual authorization. And then who gets to sign what and who gets to award what and when. If you look in the proposed ordinance, it's really all over the place. There's 2 definitions, and one of them is used in the other definition and then not mentioned at all in the authorization section, which is all the way at the very end of the ordinance. So it's really disjointed, and it's hard for staff to come in and look at it and really understand what they need to do. So this current ordinance breaks it out. We separate public projects from every other type of procurement, because those have to be procured in a very specific way mandated by state law. Then we exempt out professional services to its own section, because they have their own rules and regulations as well. And then we have our goods, services, IT, general services, and things like that in its own separate section. And what we do also is we have a very clear and concise contracting authority, where it really reins it in. It's city manager for $220,000 and under, or his designee. And it's important for him to have a designee if he's out or unable to sign contracts. He can appoint one of his assistants or the public works director. Anything over $220,000 comes to council no matter what, unless you guys give specific designation or a delegation to Alex to sign certain things if it's more expeditious to do so. So it's very clear there. And then the purchasing agent executes all agreements and reviews all change orders and amendments and signs those as well. So we're really trying to centralize how the procurement process goes and make it really clear and just a very clear line. Under 220,000, these are the rules. Over 220,000, it goes to council.
Thank you. And I think you did that in a tenth of the time that that you had on there. But I say that as a compliment, because I appreciate that level of information. And similar to the ACFR presentation we had tonight, I think if we had that for the public to see visually and hear from, and be able to have that on the record of this recorded meeting, I think that'd be helpful, only helpful for the public. So thank you. I would like to ask if Ms. Yates has anything else to add to that as far as the process here, or input you have just from your position.
Well, I think with the proposal of the new ordinance, it helps the purchasing manager and the city in general to understand what are their rules and laws to follow with the ordinance, by breaking it out with specific types of contracting that we're doing, with the solicitation thresholds that we have for an informal versus a formal solicitation, and then those dollars amount. It also allows us to have contracts that may be with a CIP with millions of dollars expended, that if we go out and do another solicitation and that vendor happens to get that solicitation, that it is not an aggregate of what that whole entire vendor has with the city. The procurements are individually procured by either informal solicitation, a formal solicitation, a cooperative agreement, or whatever the process may be that we're going to procure by.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you both.
Yeah,
those are my questions, Mayor.
Councilmember Starr, go ahead.
Hi, Ms. McCarron. I just wanted to say again, and I said this at the committee meeting, that I was very impressed with the work you did with this. It seems like we're going to be able to take advantage of sections of the of law that's changed over the years that we really weren't able to do because of our ordinance need to be updated. I just thought you did a really good job. One of the things that I think I mentioned is what we need to be mindful of is that since we are duplicating some language from state law in this ordinance, that there'll probably be a need for some sort of annual or biannual review to make sure that as the law changes, that our ordinance, stays up to date with that. And I guess the other thing that I mentioned was that we still have a need to, and I know you said you're going to, and that's great. Or there's still going to be some needs for some internal procedures that need to be developed to work under this framework. And I'm confident you're going to be able to do that. So once again, just my hat's off to you. I was very happy to read that. I really grilled you at the committee meeting, and you were able to answer like that. So,
yep.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any speakers on this item?
Mayor, we do not have any public speakers in person or virtually. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no speakers and there's be no further comment on this item, Councilmember Starr.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
For the introduction.
Thank you, yes, for the introduction for the first reading.
Thank you for that clarification, City Attorney. Madam Clerk, can we get the vote?
Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilman Starr?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Teran?
Yes.
Councilwoman Basua?
Aye.
Mayor MacArthur?
Yes.
Councilmember Perallo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bettis?
Yes.
And the motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Will there be no further business on the agenda and without any objections, we adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
You too, Bert.